It was supposed to be a night of celebration, the kind of glamorous evening where Emily could finally feel like she belonged by her husband's side. Ryan had promised her that the annual gala at the Crystal Renaissance Hotel would be a chance to show the world their unity, their strength as a couple. Emily spent hours preparing. She slipped into a flowing emerald gown that hugged her swollen belly, her hair curled softly around her shoulders. At 8 months pregnant, she didn't feel beautiful, but she hoped Ryan would at least see the effort. As she stood before the mirror, she whispered to her baby, "Tonight, maybe your father will remember who I am." But Ryan had different plans. When Emily arrived at the glittering ballroom, her heart dropped. Chandeliers sparkled above, violins played, and the city's elite mingled with champagne flutes in hand. But all eyes were on Ryan, and on the woman clinging to his arm, Sophia. She was stunning in a scarlet gown, her lips painted the same shade as the lipstick Emily had once found on Ryan's collar. Their entrance was deliberate, hand in hand, smiles blazing under the camera flashes. Whispers erupted across the room. "Isn't that his wife over there?" someone muttered. "And who's she?" Emily stood frozen near the doorway, her clutch trembling in her hands. She felt every gaze like a dagger piercing her skin. The man who was supposed to protect her had turned her humiliation into a spectacle. Ryan spotted her then. For a flicker of a second, his eyes widened with surprise. But instead of shame, a sly smirk curved his lips. He tightened his hold on Sophia's waist, pulling her closer as though daring Emily to object. Her vision blurred with tears, but she refused to run. She stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor, each step heavier than the last. Gasps filled the air as guests noticed her, the very pregnant wife confronting her husband and his mistress in the most public way possible. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How could you?" He didn't answer. Instead, Sophia tilted her chin, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "You should have stayed home, Emily. This is Ryan's world now, and you don't belong in it." The words stung worse than the whispers circling the room. Emily clutched her belly, struggling to breathe under the crushing weight of humiliation. People weren't just watching, they were judging, feasting on her pain like vultures. A woman nearby whispered too loudly, "How pathetic, she still thinks she's his wife." Emily's cheeks burned. She wanted to scream, to cry, to beg Ryan to remember the vows he once made. But the man before her wasn't her husband anymore. He was a stranger wrapped in arrogance, intoxicated by attention. Ryan finally spoke, his voice calm, calculated. "Emily, go home. You're embarrassing yourself." The words shattered her. Embarrassing herself? She was 8 months pregnant, abandoned, betrayed, and he dared to act as if she was the one at fault. Her knees weakened. She turned to leave, desperate to escape the suffocating stares. But as she reached the doors, a sharp pain shot through her abdomen, forcing her to double over. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. "Is she going into labor?" someone exclaimed. Emily's cry of pain silenced the room. The music stopped, conversations halted, and every eye locked onto her trembling figure. Ryan hesitated, torn between appearances and responsibility, while Sophia's smile only widened. Because in that moment, Emily realized her worst nightmare. Her suffering had become a public spectacle, and no one was coming to save her. The ballroom lights blurred as Emily clutched her stomach, her knees buckling beneath her. The sharp pain twisted through her like a knife, and for one terrifying moment, she thought her baby was slipping away right there, on the cold marble floor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests stepped back, others whispered, their curiosity outweighing any instinct to help. To them, she wasn't a woman in crisis. She was tonight's scandal. "Ryan!" Emily cried, her voice raw with panic. "Please, I need you." Her husband stood only a few feet away, Sophia still latched onto his arm. His expression flickered, anger, hesitation, then indifference. "You're being dramatic, Emily," he muttered, his voice low but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This is exactly why I can't stand being around you anymore." The words stabbed deeper than the physical pain. Tears blurred her vision as the room spun. Someone should have stepped forward, should have helped, but no one moved. They were too afraid of Ryan's wrath, or too entertained by the spectacle. Emily fell to her knees. Her emerald gown pulled around her, soaking in the spilled champagne at her feet. She wrapped her arms protectively over her belly, whispering through sobs, "Please, little one, stay with me, please." Her body shook violently. Sweat drenched her skin as fear swallowed her whole. The baby kicked weakly. A faint reminder that life still clung to her, but Emily felt powerless. At last, a woman from the crowd, a stranger with kind eyes, rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "We need to call an ambulance," she shouted. But when she turned to Ryan, he lifted a hand sharply. "No," he snapped. "She's fine. She's just trying to embarrass me." The stranger's jaw dropped in disbelief. "She's 8 months pregnant. Are you insane?" Sophia rolled her eyes, her lips curving into a cruel smirk. "Honestly, it's pathetic. She's using this baby for attention. Typical." Emily's sobs grew harder, her breathing shallow. The humiliation was unbearable. The man she loved, the father of her child, stood unmoved while strangers debated whether her pain was real. The ballroom doors burst open then. Security guards rushed inside, alerted by the commotion. For a moment, Emily thought rescue had finally come, but instead of helping her, the guards went to Ryan. "Sir, do you want us to remove her?" one asked carefully. Emily's heart stopped. Remove her? She was his wife, his family, yet Ryan's answer came cold and swift. "Yes, get her out of here. She's ruining the night." The crowd gasped in unison. Emily's hands trembled as the guards approached, their eyes filled with pity but bound by duty. She wanted to scream, to fight, but her body betrayed her, too weak, too fragile. As they lifted her from the floor, the room erupted in whispers. "He's heartless. She's gonna lose the baby. Poor woman." Emily's head lolled against the guard's shoulder, her tears mixing with the sweat on her face. The chandelier lights above blurred into a kaleidoscope of cruelty. Her last sight, before the doors slammed shut, was Ryan, standing tall with Sophia beside him, raising his glass in a mock toast as if nothing had happened. The ambulance siren wailed in the distance, but Emily's consciousness slipped away. Her world narrowed to the faint thrum of her baby's heartbeat and the crushing weight of betrayal. And in that moment, as darkness swallowed her, Emily realized she might not live to see her child's first breath. The blaring siren cut through the night as the ambulance sped toward St. Vincent's Hospital. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness, her body trembling, her breaths shallow. Every contraction tore through her like fire, and fear clamped around her heart tighter than the paramedic's hands on her wrist. "Stay with us, ma'am," the paramedic urged, pressing an oxygen mask over her face. "You're not alone. Just breathe." But Emily felt alone. She thought of Ryan, his cold smirk, his refusal to help, and a fresh wave of tears slipped down her cheeks. The baby inside her shifted weakly, and she whispered through the mask, "Hold on, little one. Just hold on." At the hospital, the fluorescent lights blinded her as the gurney rattled through endless corridors. Nurses shouted orders, doctors barked commands, and the chaos swallowed her whole. Her emerald gown was cut away, replaced by hospital sheets, monitors beeping urgently around her. "Blood pressure's dropping," a nurse cried. "We need to stabilize her before she goes into full labor," the doctor replied sharply. Emily clutched the sheet with trembling hands. She was terrified, but even through the haze of pain, one thought consumed her. Would her baby survive if she didn't? Meanwhile, across town, Ryan sat in a leather booth at an upscale bar, a glass of whiskey in hand, Sophia's laughter ringing in his ears. He didn't care where Emily was. In his mind, she was someone else's problem now. Back at the hospital, Emily's world blurred again. She thought she heard a familiar voice cutting through the chaos. Deep, steady, urgent. "Emily, Emily, it's me. You're gonna be okay. I'm here now." Her eyes fluttered open, and through the haze, she saw him, Ethan Blake, Ryan's longtime friend and business partner. Unlike Ryan, his face was etched with genuine fear, his hands gripping the rail of her bed as if holding her to life. "What happened?" he demanded of the doctor. "She's in critical condition," the doctor replied quickly. "Severe stress and trauma. The baby's in distress, too. If her condition worsens, we may have to perform an emergency C-section." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked down at Emily, his voice low, urgent. "You are not alone anymore. I won't let him do this to you." Her tears spilled freely then, not just from pain, but from the sudden realization that someone still cared, someone still fought for her. She squeezed Ethan's hand weakly, as though clinging to a lifeline, but not everyone in the hospital was on her side. As Emily drifted in and out, she overheard two nurses whispering, Did you see the paperwork? Her husband signed a consent form refusing advanced intervention unless it was absolutely necessary. He basically left her fate to chance. Emily's chest constricted. Ryan had signed her away, literally choosing to risk her life for convenience. Ethan heard too. Fury blazed in his eyes. Overruled, he snapped. If she needs the procedure, you do it. Don't wait for his permission. The doctor hesitated. Legally, he's still her husband. Then you'll hear from my lawyers in the morning. Ethan cut him off. Tonight, you save them both. Emily wanted to cry out, to thank him, but another contraction stole her voice. The monitors beeped louder, the doctor shouting for surgical prep. Hands moved swiftly around her, the bright surgical lights bearing down. Her last image before the anesthesia mask descended was Ethan's face, firm, determined, unwavering. For the first time in months, she felt safe. But safety was a fragile illusion. Because as Emily slipped into unconsciousness, she had no idea that Ryan was already planning to erase her existence completely. While Emily fought for her life in the cold, sterile walls of St. Vincent's, Ryan Carter was raising a glass of champagne at the Skyfall Club, the city's most exclusive rooftop lounge. From 20 stories up, the skyline glittered, the night alive with laughter, music, and clinking glasses. To Ryan, it was the sound of freedom. Sophia leaned into him, her crimson lips brushing his ear. So it's done? She purred. Ryan smirked, swirling the champagne in his glass. As far as I'm concerned, yes. Emily's out of the picture. She was dead weight anyway. I'm finally free. The words rolled off his tongue without hesitation, as though the woman carrying his child had never mattered. The other men at the table, investors, board members, the kind of sharks Ryan admired, chuckled approvingly. To them, loyalty was weakness, and ambition was everything. Sophia basked in the attention. Draped in a sleek black dress, diamonds sparkling at her throat, she looked every bit the queen Ryan wanted by his side. Now we can finally focus on us, she whispered, her eyes glinting. Ryan nodded, clinking his glass against hers. Us, and the empire we're about to build. With Emily gone, there's no more distractions. But what Ryan didn't know was that across town, Emily still clung to life, her unborn child fighting with her. And Ethan Blake, Ryan's supposed friend, was already stepping into the role Ryan had abandoned. Back at the rooftop, the celebration grew louder. Waiters glided past with trays of oysters and champagne, photographers snapped pictures, and music pulsed through the night. Ryan thrived in the spotlight, his arm around Sophia as though she were already his wife. One investor leaned in. So, Ryan, no more domestic baggage? No crying wife? No baby to tie you down? Ryan laughed coldly. Exactly. My future is wide open. I don't have time for weakness. Sophia's smile faltered for just a moment. Weakness. The word stung, because she knew Ryan's loyalty was as fragile as glass. Today, it was Emily. Tomorrow, it could be her. But she masked the fear with a dazzling smile, determined to keep her place by his side, for now. As the night wore on, Ryan slipped away to the balcony, staring at the city he planned to conquer. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Make sure the hospital paperwork is finalized, he ordered. No heroics. If she pulls through, I don't want to be responsible. The voice on the other end hesitated. Sir, are you saying? I'm saying she doesn't matter anymore, Ryan cut in sharply. Do what you have to do. He hung up, tucking the phone into his pocket, his jaw tightening with ruthless resolve. For him, Emily was already erased. But just as he turned back toward the party, Sophia joined him, her glass refilled. To new beginnings, she toasted. Ryan smirked, clinking glasses once again. To new beginnings. The music swelled, fireworks bursting over the skyline. To everyone else, it was a night of triumph. But beneath the glittering celebration, Ryan's empire had already begun to rot. Because while he celebrated Emily's supposed demise, Ethan was signing the consent forms to save both mother and child. And in that hospital room, two fragile heartbeats fought harder than Ryan ever imagined. And when those heartbeats survived, Ryan's carefully built world would come crashing down. The first thing Emily felt was light, harsh, blinding hospital light, piercing through her eyelids. The steady beeping of machines followed, each sound a reminder that she was still tethered to life. Her body ached as if she had been torn apart and stitched back together, and when she tried to move, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. Her lips parted, dry and cracked. Where? Where am I? A gentle voice answered immediately. You're safe, Emily. You're at St. Vincent's? Don't move too much." Her blurry vision slowly focused on a face above her, Ethan Blake. His dark suit jacket was rumpled, his tie loosened, and exhaustion lined his eyes. But when he saw her awaken, relief softened his expression. "You made it," he whispered. "You and the baby." Emily's breath hitched. Her hand shot to her belly, terrified of what she might or might not feel. Ethan guided her trembling hand downward until she felt the faint rhythm of movement beneath the blanket. "The baby?" she asked, her voice breaking. "He's holding on," Ethan reassured her. "The doctors performed an emergency procedure. It was close, too close, but both of you are alive." Tears streamed down her cheeks. She had been so certain that night would be her last, that her child would never take his first breath. But here she was, clinging to the thinnest thread of hope, and Ethan had been the one to keep it from snapping. Yet even in relief, terror lingered. "Ryan," she whispered, her throat tightening around his name. Ethan's jaw hardened, anger flashing in his eyes. "He left you, Emily. He signed the papers to limit your care. If I hadn't intervened, you might not be here right now." Her stomach turned. She wanted to deny it, to believe Ryan wasn't capable of such cruelty. But deep down, she knew. She had seen it in his eyes that night on the mountain road, heard it in his voice at the gala. Still, the truth crushed her. "Why?" she sobbed. "Why would he do this to me? To our child?" Ethan gripped her hand firmly. "Because he doesn't see you as his future, but I do, and I won't let him destroy you." His words stirred something inside her, a fragile spark of strength she thought had died. For weeks she had lived in fear, humiliation, and despair. But now, lying in a hospital bed with her baby still alive, she felt a glimmer of defiance. The door creaked open and a nurse stepped in carrying a clipboard. "Mrs. Carter," she said softly, "your husband called earlier. He instructed us not to update you directly. All information was supposed to go through him." Emily's chest tightened. Even now, Ryan was trying to control her life, her choices, her survival. Ethan stood, his voice firm. "From now on, all updates go to me." Ryan forfeited his rights when he abandoned her. The nurse hesitated, glancing between them. Legally, he's still her next of kin. Emily's pulse spiked. If Ryan still had control, he could decide her fate all over again. She clutched Ethan's hand desperately, fear flooding back into her chest. "I can't go back to him," she whispered. "I won't survive if I do." Ethan's gaze locked with hers, steady and unwavering. "Then we'll find a way to break free, Emily. But you need to rest. You and the baby need to get stronger first." She nodded weakly, exhaustion pulling at her again. Her eyelids fluttered, the machines beside her keeping steady rhythm. But just as she drifted into uneasy sleep, she overheard the nurse whisper into the phone at the corner of the room. "Yes, Mr. Carter. She's awake now. We'll follow your instructions." Emily's blood ran cold, because even from afar, Ryan's grip hadn't loosened, and his next move could cost her everything. Across town, while Emily clung to survival under Ethan's protection, Ryan and Sophia were celebrating like royalty. The private penthouse suite of the Grand Aurelius Hotel overflowed with opulence. Crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, champagne towers glistening under golden light. Ryan had rented the entire floor for one reason: to announce his new life to the people who mattered most in his world. Sophia sparkled in a sequined gown, her laughter high and sharp, her hand proudly looped through Ryan's arm. "To us," she declared, raising her glass. "Finally, no more shadows, no more secrets." Ryan smirked, soaking in the attention of his wealthy associates. "Emily was holding me back. She was weak. With Sophia by my side, I can finally focus on building an empire." The men nodded approvingly, the women exchanged sly glances, and the room buzzed with gossip. In Ryan's eyes, humiliation was victory. Emily was gone, or so he believed, and nothing could stop him now. Sophia leaned close, whispering in his ear, "When will you make it official? Divorce her. Make me your wife." Ryan chuckled, sipping his champagne. "Patience. The legal side takes time, but don't worry, Emily's not coming back. She's as good as dead to me." The cruelty of his words didn't sting Sophia. It thrilled her. She had clawed her way from being just a secretary to standing on the arm of a man who could give her everything she craved. Power, money, status. Tonight, she felt untouchable. But beneath her polished smile, Sophia knew Ryan's loyalty was as shallow as his champagne glass. He had abandoned Emily without hesitation. What would stop him from doing the same to her someday? For now, though, she shoved the thought aside. Better to enjoy the spotlight while it lasted. As the night deepened, Ryan unveiled his vision. Standing at the center of the room, he spoke like a king addressing his court. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks the beginning of a new era. With Sophia by my side, we'll take Carter Holdings to heights my old life never allowed. No more baggage, no more distractions, just progress, power, and profit." Applause erupted, glasses clinked, and Ryan basked in the glow. To him, it was confirmation that he had made the right choice. Emily was nothing more than a forgotten chapter. But in a shadowed corner of the room, a quiet figure observed with icy detachment. An older man, one of Ryan's senior investors, watched the display with growing unease. He had seen men like Ryan before, men who discarded loyalty and family in pursuit of ambition. And he knew how quickly empires built on betrayal could crumble. Sophia noticed the man's stare, her smile faltering for a heartbeat. She nudged Ryan. "Not everyone's convinced." Ryan waved it off. "They'll fall in line. They always do." The party roared on, laughter and music spilling out onto the balcony. Ryan pulled Sophia close, kissing her in full view of everyone. Cameras flashed, sealing the moment. But across the city, in a dim hospital room, Emily stirred. Monitors beeped steadily, her chest rising and falling with renewed strength. Ethan sat at her bedside, his phone buzzing with messages he refused to check. His only focus was her survival and the fragile heartbeat of her child. What Ryan didn't know was that his cruel celebration had already sown seeds of his downfall. Because the world believed Emily was finished, but soon they would learn the truth. And when Emily rose again, she would not rise alone. She would rise with Ethan, and Ryan's empire would burn. The steady rhythm of machines surrounded Emily, each beep reminding her that she was still alive. But the silence in her heart was deafening. She didn't know if her child had survived the ordeal. The uncertainty was worse than the pain, worse than Ryan's betrayal. When the nurse entered with a portable monitor, Emily's heart clenched. "We're going to check on the baby now," the nurse said gently, wheeling the machine closer. Ethan rose immediately from his chair, his tired eyes locked on Emily. He had been there through every long hour, refusing to leave her side. His hand found hers, steady and warm. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "you won't face it alone." Emily nodded weakly, tears already welling. She had prepared herself for the worst, but part of her still clung desperately to hope. The nurse applied the gel to Emily's abdomen, pressing the wand against her skin. The room filled with static at first, a crackle that sent Emily's pulse racing. Her eyes darted between the monitor and the nurse's calm face, searching for a sign. Then it came, a steady thump, strong, determined, the sound of life. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as tears spilled freely. That's him?" The nurse smiled softly. "Yes, that's your baby's heartbeat. He's a fighter." The sound filled the room, echoing like music more beautiful than any symphony. Emily sobbed, gripping Ethan's hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. The terror of the past days dissolved into relief so overwhelming she could hardly breathe. "My baby," she whispered. "He's still here." Ethan's throat tightened as he watched her crumble into tears of joy. He squeezed her hand, his own eyes glassy. "He's strong, Emily, just like his mother." For a long time, Emily lay there, listening to the rhythm, the fragile but defiant beat of her child's heart. Each sound was proof that she hadn't been abandoned by life itself. Ryan may have betrayed her, but the universe hadn't. But joy quickly gave way to fear. "What if Ryan tries to take him from me?" Emily asked suddenly, her voice trembling. "He doesn't want me, but he might want the baby. He could use him to control me." Ethan's expression hardened. "Over my dead body." Ryan forfeited any right to call himself a father when he left you bleeding on the ground. "If he comes near you or this child, I'll fight him with everything I have." Emily wanted to believe him, wanted to trust in the strength he offered, but she knew Ryan, his charm, his influence, his ruthless ambition. He would not give up easily, especially if he thought there was something to gain. The nurse finished the scan, wiping Emily's skin gently. "For now, focus on rest. Stress isn't good for either of you. The baby's stable, but the next few weeks will be critical." Ethan nodded firmly. "She'll have peace. I'll make sure of it." When the nurse left, Emily turned to him, her voice raw but determined. "Ethan, why are you doing this for me? You don't owe me anything." He met her gaze steadily. "Because someone has to care when he doesn't." And because you and your child deserve more than pain, you deserve protection. You deserve love. Her chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from something deeper, a fragile spark of hope she hadn't felt in months. But the fragile moment shattered when Ethan's phone buzzed violently on the bedside table. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. Emily's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Ethan exhaled sharply, gripping the phone. "It's Ryan. He knows you're alive." The moment Ethan's phone lit up with Ryan's name, Emily felt the air leave her lungs. She clutched her stomach, protective instincts roaring to life. If Ryan knew she was alive, then her nightmare was far from over. "Don't answer," Emily begged, her voice cracking. But Ethan's jaw tightened. He swiped to accept, holding the phone to his ear. "Ryan." The voice on the other end oozed arrogance. "So the rumors are true. She's still alive." A pause, then a sharp laugh. "I should have known you'd stick your nose where it doesn't belong, Ethan." Ethan's grip tightened around the phone. "She almost died because of you. If you cared about anything other than yourself, you'd stay far away." Ryan chuckled darkly. "Don't play the hero. She's still my wife, and that baby is mine. You can't change the law, Blake. I can walk into that hospital tomorrow and claim what's rightfully mine." Emily's blood ran cold. She shook her head violently, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No. He can't. He can't take my baby." Ethan ended the call before Ryan could say more. His eyes locked with Emily's, steady and fierce. "Listen to me. He may have the law on his side for now, but he doesn't have the truth. And I swear, I'll expose him." But Ryan wasn't bluffing. The very next morning, a lawyer in a tailored suit appeared at the hospital with court documents. He demanded access to Emily's medical records, citing Ryan's authority as her husband. Emily clutched the blankets to her chest, trembling. "He's trying to make me look unfit, isn't he?" The lawyer's cold smile was answer enough. "Mr. Carter is simply concerned about the welfare of his child. Given Mrs. Carter's recent breakdowns, the court may decide custody should rest with him." Emily's stomach twisted. They were painting her as unstable, hysterical, a danger to her own child. Every humiliation, every moment of weakness in public was now ammunition in Ryan's hands. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steel. "Tell Ryan this. If he tries to take that child, I'll bury him in court. He abandoned his pregnant wife in medical crisis. I have witnesses. I have evidence." The lawyer's smirk didn't fade. "We'll see what the judge thinks." With that, he turned and left, the echo of his footsteps chilling the hospital hallway. Emily broke down, her sobs shaking her frail body. "Ethan, what if he wins? What if they believe him?" Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "Then we fight harder. He may have money, but we have the truth. And I won't let him destroy you again." But deep down, Emily knew Ryan's influence was vast. He could bribe doctors, twist stories, bend the law to his will. The fear of losing her child gnawed at her more viciously than the memory of his betrayal. That night, sleep eluded her. Every sound in the hallway made her jolt, afraid it was Ryan coming to steal her baby. Ethan stayed by her side, his hand wrapped around hers, a silent promise that she wasn't alone. But the storm was only beginning. The next morning, as Emily sat upright in bed, a nurse entered hesitantly, holding a sealed envelope. "This just arrived for you," she said. Emily's trembling fingers tore it open. Her heart pounded as she unfolded the document. It was a court summons. Ryan had filed for full custody of the unborn child. Emily's scream pierced the quiet hospital room. Because now, Ryan wasn't just trying to erase her, he was trying to steal the only reason she had left to live. The hospital room was silent except for Emily's quiet sobs. The court summons lay crumpled in her trembling hands, the words "full custody" seared into her brain like fire. "He can't do this," she whispered, her voice raw. "He doesn't even want the baby. He just wants to take him away from me." Ethan crouched beside her bed, steady and calm despite the storm raging inside him. "That's exactly what he wants. Control. But listen to me, Emily. He will not win." She lifted her tear-stained face, her eyes desperate. "How can you be so sure? Ryan has money, power, lawyers. I have nothing." "You have me," Ethan said firmly. "And I have more resources than Ryan realizes. I've been his partner long enough to know his weaknesses. If he wants a war, then I'll give him one." Emily blinked at him, stunned. "Why would you risk everything for me, for us?" His jaw tightened, his gaze unwavering. "Because you and your child deserve protection. You deserve a future free of him." And if that means standing against Ryan Carter, then so be it. Her heart ached at his words. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt a sliver of hope. The next day, Ethan wasted no time. He marched into the law offices downtown, his presence commanding. Papers in hand, he met with his legal team. I want an emergency injunction. Ryan abandoned his pregnant wife in medical distress, and I have witnesses. Build the case, now. The lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan, you understand Ryan's influence. He'll drag this out, smear Emily's reputation, maybe even buy off the judge. Ethan's eyes darkened. Then we expose him. I don't care how powerful he thinks he is. There's always a crack in the armor. Find it. Meanwhile, Emily struggled to stay strong. Every knock at the hospital door made her heart race, fearing it was Ryan coming to claim her child. She clutched her belly constantly, whispering promises to her unborn son. I'll never let him take you. I'll fight until my last breath. But fear lingered. When Ethan returned that evening, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. Tell me the truth, she begged. Do we even stand a chance? Ethan took her hand gently. Yes, because we have the one thing Ryan doesn't. Proof. Proof that he's not just unfit as a father, but dangerous, and I'm not afraid to use it. Her brow furrowed. What proof? Ethan hesitated, then leaned closer, his voice low. I've known about his corruption for years. Bribes, illegal deals, offshore accounts. I didn't speak before because I thought it wasn't my fight. But now it is. Emily's breath caught. If you expose him, won't you destroy your own career? Ethan's expression softened, but his voice remained resolute. Careers can be rebuilt, lives cannot. Saving you and your baby matters more than any company. Tears welled in Emily's eyes again, but this time they weren't born of despair. They were born of gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve this kindness. You deserve everything Ryan never gave you, Ethan replied. But their fragile moment of resolve shattered when a nurse rushed in, panic on her face. Mr. Blake, Mrs. Carter, you need to know this immediately. Someone tried to access Emily's medical records again. They used Ryan's clearance code. Emily's body froze. Her worst fear was becoming reality. The nurse swallowed hard before adding, and this time, it wasn't just about records. Someone tried to file for a medical transfer to move her to another facility under Ryan's authority. Emily's hands flew protectively to her belly, terror flooding her veins. Because if Ryan succeeded, she and her baby might never leave that hospital alive. The hospital corridors were quieter that evening, but Emily couldn't shake the unease clawing at her chest. Every whisper of footsteps made her wonder if Ryan was coming to tear her world apart. She pressed her hands against her belly, whispering softly, "Stay with me, little one. Mommy won't let him take you." Ethan returned with a stack of papers in his hand, his expression more determined than ever. He set them down on the bedside table. "I had my lawyers dig deeper," he said. "Ryan's moving fast. He filed emergency motions in family court. But in the process, we found something he doesn't want you to know." Emily looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Ethan slid one paper toward her. It was an old property record, the faded ink bearing the name of her late parents. "Did you know your family left you this?" Her eyes widened. "That's our land, the one back home. But Ryan told me it wasn't worth anything, that we had to sign it over years ago." Ethan shook his head. He lied. The land wasn't worthless. It was rezoned for commercial use last year. Its value skyrocketed. Millions, Emily. It's in your name alone. Emily's breath caught. She had spent years believing she had nothing, that Ryan's money and power were her only security. But here was proof she had her own foundation, an inheritance Ryan had tried to bury. "That's why he's fighting for custody," Ethan explained grimly. "It's not about love, not even about revenge. He wants control of the land. With you gone and custody of the child, he gets access to it all." Tears blurred Emily's vision, but this time they weren't just from fear. Anger surged in her chest, stronger than she had ever felt before. "He was going to let me die, just to steal from me." Ethan leaned closer, his voice low, fierce. "And now you know the truth. This is your leverage, Emily. He can't claim it unless he controls you or the baby. And I swear I won't let that happen." For the first time in weeks, Emily felt something other than despair. She felt a spark of power, faint but real. The inheritance wasn't just money, it was proof of Ryan's deceit. But the danger was far from over. Later that night, as Emily drifted into a fragile sleep, Ethan stepped into the hallway to make a call. "Secure the property," he told his lawyer. "Put a freeze on any transactions. Ryan can't touch it without Emily's consent." The lawyer's voice crackled through the phone. "You'd better move quickly. We've just learned Ryan tried to forge Emily's signature on transfer documents. If the county office hadn't flagged it, he would have already sold part of the land." Ethan's stomach dropped. "He's desperate," he muttered. When he returned to Emily's room, he didn't tell her the full extent of Ryan's scheme. She needed rest, not another reason to panic, but he knew they had little time before Ryan made his next move. The next morning, Emily awoke to find a bouquet of roses on the side table. Her heart froze. They weren't from Ethan. The card was signed in bold, mocking handwriting, "See you soon, R." Emily's hand shook as she clutched the card. He knew where she was. He wasn't hiding anymore. Her chest tightened, fear clawing at her throat. She looked at Ethan with wide, desperate eyes, because Ryan wasn't waiting for the courts anymore. He was coming for her directly. The pain started in the middle of the night. At first, it was a dull ache that rippled across Emily's back. She tried to breathe through it, telling herself it was false labor, just another cruel trick her body was playing on her too soon. But within minutes, the ache sharpened into searing contractions, each wave stronger than the last. She clutched her belly, gasping. "No, not now. Please, not yet." Ethan, asleep in the chair beside her bed, bolted upright at the sound of her cry. He rushed to her side, gripping her trembling hands. "Emily, what's wrong?" Her face twisted in agony. "The baby, he's coming." Panic flashed across Ethan's face, but he forced his voice steady. "I'll get the doctors. Hold on." He hit the call button, his heart pounding. Within seconds, nurses flooded the room, rolling Emily's bed toward delivery. The fluorescent lights blurred above her as she was wheeled through the hallway. Her screams echoed, raw and desperate. She wasn't ready. Her body was weak, her spirit battered from weeks of stress and fear. But the baby didn't care. He was ready to come. Inside the delivery room, chaos erupted. Doctors barked instructions, machines beeped frantically, and the air grew thick with tension. 8 months pregnant, one doctor muttered. "We'll need neonatal specialists on standby." Emily's eyes darted around wildly, fear choking her. She clutched Ethan's hand as he leaned close, his voice a lifeline in the storm. "You're not alone. Look at me. You can do this." Her tears spilled over. "I'm so scared, Ethan. What if I can't? What if I lose him?" "You won't," Ethan said firmly, though his own heart thundered with doubt. "You're stronger than you think, and I'm right here." The contractions ripped through her, each one worse than the last. She screamed, gripping Ethan's hand so tightly he thought his bones might break. Sweat poured down her face, her body trembling violently. Hours blurred together, screams, gasps, whispered prayers. Emily fought with every ounce of strength she had left, the weight of betrayal and humiliation burning behind her like fuel. She refused to let Ryan's cruelty be the end of her story. Finally, the doctor shouted, "We're crowning! Just one more push." Emily's body was on fire, her vision dimming at the edges, but she dug deep, summoning strength she didn't know she had. With a final primal scream, she bore down, her entire being focused on bringing life into the world. And then, silence. Emily's chest heaved, her head lolling back against the pillow. The room felt suspended in time. "Why isn't he crying?" she whispered hoarsely, panic rising in her throat. The doctor moved quickly, lifting the tiny, fragile body. Nurses swarmed, working feverishly as the seconds dragged into an eternity. "Please," Emily sobbed. "Please, let him cry." Ethan's grip on her hand tightened, his knuckles white. He stared at the small, motionless child, his heart plummeting into darkness. And then, at last, a cry. It was weak at first, a soft wail that quickly grew louder, stronger, defiant. The room exhaled in unison. Emily's sobs turned to laughter, her relief so intense it shook her entire body. The nurse placed the tiny boy against her chest. Emily gazed at him through tears, whispering, "My son, my miracle." Ethan's eyes filled as he leaned close, resting a hand on the baby's small back. "He's perfect, just like his mother." But the moment of peace shattered when a man in a dark suit entered the room, holding a clipboard. His voice was cold, official. "Mrs. Carter, I'm here on behalf of your husband. Per court order, custody arrangements are to be discussed immediately." Emily's joy froze into horror. because before she could even hold her son properly, Ryan was already trying to take him away. The delivery room should have been filled with nothing but joy. Emily's exhausted laughter, the baby's soft cries, Ethan's quiet words of comfort. But instead, the air turned cold the moment the sweeted man spoke. Emily clutched her newborn tighter against her chest, her voice trembling. "What did you just say?" The man adjusted his glasses, his tone clinical and detached. Per court order filed by Mr. Ryan Carter, he retains parental rights as the child's legal father. I've been sent to ensure his name is placed on the birth certificate immediately. Emily's stomach twisted. She had barely met her son, hadn't even counted his fingers and toes, and already Ryan was trying to claim him. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "He doesn't get to decide that. He doesn't get to touch my son." Ethan stepped forward, fury flashing in his eyes. This woman almost died because of Ryan. He abandoned her. He signed away her medical care. You think we'll let him sign a piece of paper and pretend he's a father? The official didn't flinch. Mr. Carter is still legally her husband. Unless the marriage is dissolved or his rights are revoked in court, his name must appear. It's the law. Emily's chest tightened. The thought of Ryan's name tied to her baby forever made her want to scream. She pressed her lips to the child's forehead, whispering, "You're mine. Only mine." Ethan placed a protective arm around her. "Then we'll challenge it. We'll take this fight to court, and we'll expose him for what he is." The official sighed, slipping the documents onto a nearby tray. "You can contest it, but unless an injunction is granted, Ryan Carter will be recognized as the father of record." He turned to leave. "I'll return tomorrow for the signatures." As the door closed, Emily's body trembled. She had survived betrayal, humiliation, and near death, but this battle felt even crueler. Ryan didn't want her child out of love. He wanted control, leverage, access to her inheritance. Ethan knelt beside her bed, his voice steady despite his rage. "We're not going to let him win. I'll file the emergency petition tonight. By the time he tries again, the judge will know the truth." Emily nodded weakly, but fear still clouded her eyes. What if it's not enough? What if the law sees him as the father no matter what he's done? Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then I'll do whatever it takes. If I have to stand in front of that judge and claim this child as my own, I will." Her eyes widened, stunned. "Ethan?" He met her gaze firmly. "You and your son deserve someone who will protect you, not someone who will destroy you. If Ryan wants to fight dirty, then so will I." For a moment the tension softened. Emily looked down at her baby, then back at Ethan, and a fragile hope stirred inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to face this nightmare alone anymore. But peace was fleeting. The following morning, as nurses wheeled in paperwork for Emily to sign, an unfamiliar figure appeared at the doorway. Ryan himself. His expensive suit was perfectly pressed, his expression calm, smug, as though the hospital were just another boardroom he controlled. "Emily," he said smoothly, ignoring Ethan's glare. "Congratulations. He looks healthy." Emily's arms tightened around her son, her entire body stiffening. "You don't get to be here," she hissed. Ryan smirked, pulling a pen from his pocket. "On the contrary, I'm here to sign what's mine." He stepped closer to the birth certificate on the tray, his hand reaching out with chilling confidence. Emily's heart raced, panic crashing over her. Because in that moment she realized Ryan was ready to put his name on her child's life, whether she allowed it or not. The gala shimmered with opulence, chandeliers dripping with crystals, champagne bubbling in endless flutes, and the city's most powerful gathered in their finest attire. For Ryan Carter, it was the perfect stage. He arrived with Sophia on his arm, confident, smug, believing victory was already his. To him, Emily was gone, irrelevant, a ghost. But Ryan was wrong. Across the grand ballroom the doors opened, heads turned, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Emily Carter stepped inside. She looked nothing like the broken woman who had once been discarded. Her emerald gown flowed elegantly, her hair cascading in soft waves, and though she still bore the weariness of childbirth, her posture radiated quiet strength. Beside her stood Ethan Blake, tall, commanding, his presence impossible to ignore. The whispers grew louder. "Isn't that his wife? I thought she was gone. Who's that with her?" Ryan froze mid-laugh, his glass of champagne trembling in his hand. His eyes widened, then narrowed with fury. Sophia's painted smile faltered, her grip tightening on his arm. Emily's gaze locked onto Ryan, her heart pounding, but she didn't falter. She had been humiliated, abandoned, left to die. But tonight, she wasn't the victim. Tonight, she was here to reclaim her voice. As she walked across the room, the crowd parted like waves, giving her a clear path straight to her husband. Ethan matched her steps, his hands steady at her back, his presence a shield. "Ryan," Emily said softly, but her voice carried across the silent room. "Did you miss me?" The smirk returned to his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, look who crawled back. I should have known Ethan couldn't resist playing the hero." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The insinuation was clear, scandalous. But Ethan didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Tell them the truth, Ryan. Tell them how you left your 8 months pregnant wife to die on the side of the road." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Cameras clicked. Ryan's face drained of color, then hardened. "Lies," he snapped. "She's unstable. She's making up stories to cover her breakdowns." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of weakness. They were tears of fury. "Unstable? You signed away my medical care. I nearly died, Ryan, and you celebrated my death with your mistress." Sophia tried to interject, her voice sharp. "She's lying. Ryan would never." But Ethan cut her off, pulling out his phone. "Enough. I have proof. Hospital staff witnessed his signature. And if that's not enough," he tapped the screen, "then here's the security footage from that night." Gasps turned into outrage as a large screen flickered to life at the end of the ballroom. The video played, showing Ryan's car pulling to the side of the road, the door opening, Emily's pregnant form shoved into the rain. The sound of the door slamming, the car speeding away, sealed the truth. The crowd erupted. Shouts, boos, disgusted gasps. Ryan's allies shifted uncomfortably, their support evaporating before his eyes. Sophia's face went pale, her grip on his arm slipping. Ryan's mask cracked. Rage poured from him as he lunged forward, pointing a finger at Emily. "You think you've won? You think this changes anything? That child is mine, Emily, mine!" The room fell silent again, all eyes snapping to Emily. She drew in a trembling breath, her gaze steady. "No, Ryan," she said, her voice clear and strong, "he will never be yours." Ryan's face twisted in fury, but before he could speak, a deep voice rang out from the back of the room. "Actually," the man said, stepping into the light, holding a folder of legal documents, "the court has already ruled otherwise." Emily's heart stopped, because in that moment, she realized the fight for her child was about to take a shocking turn. The courtroom buzzed with tension, the air heavy with anticipation. Rows of reporters filled the benches, cameras clicking, pens scratching across notepads. Ryan Carter had spent years building his reputation as a powerful businessman, a visionary. Today, all of it hung in the balance. At the plaintiff's table sat Emily, pale but resolute, her baby swaddled in a carrier beside her. Ethan sat close, his hand resting firmly on the table, ready to steady her if she faltered. Across from them, Ryan leaned back in his chair, his expensive suit crisp, his smirk unshaken. Sophia sat behind him, her eyes darting nervously. The judge entered, gavel striking sharply. "This court is now in session. Case of Emily Carter versus Ryan Carter regarding custody and medical negligence." Ryan's lawyer rose first, confident and smooth. "Your Honor, my client is a respected member of this community. His wife has suffered emotional instability, evident from her public collapse at the Carter Holdings Gala. Mr. Carter only seeks what is best for the child, a stable environment, free from hysteria." Emily's stomach turned. Every humiliation she had endured was being twisted against her. But before despair could take root, her lawyer rose, a calm, steady woman who spoke with quiet power. "Your Honor, what Mr. Carter calls instability was in fact a direct result of his own actions. He abandoned his wife, 8 months pregnant, on a desolate road in the middle of a storm. He signed documents at St. Vincent's refusing advanced care, effectively sentencing her and the child to death." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ryan's smug smile faltered for the first time. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have evidence to support this claim?" Ethan stood holding a folder. "We do." The screen flickered on as video footage played, the same damning evidence from the gala. Ryan's car pulling over, Emily shoved into the rain, the door slamming. The jury watched in stunned silence, their faces hardening. Ryan shot to his feet. "That video is doctored. She's manipulating you all." But then another voice cut through the room. "Sophia." "Your Honor," she said shakily, standing from the gallery. All eyes turned to her, Ryan's included, shock flashing across his face. "The video is real. I was with him that night. He told me he wanted her gone." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously, whispers exploding into the air. Ryan's face turned crimson, fury blazing in his eyes as he hissed, "What are you doing?" Sophia's lips trembled, but her eyes steeled. "I'm telling the truth. I won't lie for you anymore." The judge banged the gavel for silence. "Order in the court. Continue." Emily's lawyer pressed on. "Your Honor, not only do we have proof of Mr. Carter's abandonment, but we also uncovered fraudulent attempts to forge Mrs. Carter's signature on property documents. His motive is clear: control her inheritance through custody of the child." The judge's face darkened. "Forgery? Fraud? These are serious allegations." Ryan's lawyer scrambled, but the damage was done. The courtroom had turned against him, his empire unraveling thread by thread. Emily sat straighter, her voice finally finding strength. "He doesn't care about this child. He doesn't care about me. All he wants is power. But I will not let him win. My son deserves better." The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Mr. Carter, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Ryan's mask shattered. He slammed his hands on the table, shouting, "That child is mine, and no one will take him away from me." His outburst echoed through the courtroom, sealing his fate. The judge's gavel struck sharply. "Enough. This court will recess before I issue my ruling." As the bailiff moved to restrain Ryan, Emily exhaled shakily, clutching her baby close. For the first time, victory felt within reach. But then, as the crowd dispersed, Ethan's phone buzzed with an urgent message. His face paled as he read it. Emily's heart sank. "What is it?" Ethan's eyes lifted, grim and steady. "Ryan's not done. He has one last move, and it's dangerous." The courthouse steps were swarming with reporters, their microphones and cameras aimed like weapons. Emily clutched her baby close, Ethan shielding her from the flashes as they exited the building. The judge's ruling hadn't been announced yet, but the evidence had been overwhelming. For the first time, Emily felt the tide turning. But Ryan Carter was not a man who surrendered quietly. From the back of a black SUV parked across the street, Ryan watched with seething rage. His empire was crumbling, his reputation shredded, his mistress had betrayed him. And yet, there was one thing he still wanted: control. "Drive," he barked to his driver. "Follow them." Inside the car, his fists clenched around a pistol hidden in the glove compartment. If the law wouldn't give him what he wanted, he would take it by force. Emily and Ethan arrived at the hospital shortly after, planning to check the baby's vitals before heading somewhere safe. They didn't know Ryan's vehicle had trailed them, lurking in the shadows of the parking garage. Inside her hospital room, Emily rocked her son gently, whispering, "You're safe now. Mommy's here." For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe it. Ethan stood nearby, speaking softly with the doctor about long-term care. But outside, Ryan slipped past security with alarming ease. His suit jacket concealed the weapon, his eyes wild with desperation. Each step echoed like thunder in his head. He would not lose. Not to Emily. Not to Ethan. He reached the maternity wing, his pulse hammering. Just as he pushed open the door, he froze. Through the glass, he saw Emily holding the baby, her face radiant with a peace he had never given her. And beside her stood Ethan. Protective, steady, everything Ryan wasn't. Jealousy boiled in his chest, twisting into blind rage. He yanked the door open, his voice thundering. "You think you can steal my life from me?" Emily gasped, clutching her baby tighter. Nurses screamed, scattering out of the room. Ethan spun around, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the gun in Ryan's hand. "Ryan, don't do this," Ethan said firmly, stepping in front of Emily. "It's over. You've lost." Ryan's laugh was hollow, unhinged. "Over? No. This is the only way I win." He raised the weapon, his hand trembling but determined. Emily's heart stopped. She shielded her baby with her body, whispering prayers through her tears. "Please, Ryan, he's your son." For a split second, something flickered in Ryan's eyes. Doubt, hesitation. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "No," he spat. "He's my possession. And if I can't have him, no one will." The room erupted into chaos. Alarms blared as security rushed toward the ward. Ethan lunged forward, tackling Ryan's arm just as the gun went off. The deafening crack split the air, the bullet embedding into the wall inches from Emily's head. Emily screamed, clutching her baby as she crouched behind the bed. Nurses pulled her towards safety, while Ethan and Ryan struggled violently, the gun skidding across the floor. "Get out, Emily!" Ethan shouted through gritted teeth, grappling with Ryan's fists. But Emily couldn't move. Her legs were frozen, her eyes locked on the two men, the monster who had tried to destroy her, and the man risking his life to save her. Ryan slammed Ethan against the wall, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You think you can take everything from me? I built this life. She was mine." Ethan's voice was a growl. "She was never yours." Security finally burst into the room, shouting orders. Guns were drawn, chaos mounting. And then Ryan broke free of Ethan's grip and dove for the weapon lying near Emily's feet. Her blood ran cold. Because in that instant, Emily realized the man who had abandoned her was about to finish what he started. Time slowed as Ryan's hand stretched toward the gun. Emily's breath caught, her baby wailing in her arms. Every muscle in her body screamed with terror. For a heartbeat, she saw her entire life flash before her. The stormy night he left her to die, the humiliation at the gala, the courtroom battles, and now, the man who had once vowed to protect her was about to end everything. But Ethan was faster. With a roar, he lunged forward, kicking the weapon across the floor before Ryan could reach it. Security swarmed, tackling Ryan to the ground. He fought wildly, screaming curses, his eyes burning with hatred. "You can't take him from me. He's mine. She was mine." The officers pinned him down, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Ryan's face was pressed against the cold tile, his voice breaking into a desperate howl. "Emily, you'll regret this. You'll regret ever crossing me." Emily clutched her baby tightly, her body trembling, but for the first time in months she felt no fear. She stood tall, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "No, Ryan, the only thing I regret is ever believing you loved me." The officers dragged Ryan out, his shouts echoing down the corridor until silence finally fell. In the aftermath, the hospital staff gathered around Emily, their relief palpable. Ethan sank into the chair beside her bed, exhaustion written all over his face. But when Emily looked at him, her chest ached with gratitude. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice breaking. He shook his head, his eyes soft. "No, Emily, you saved yourself. You fought through everything. Betrayal, humiliation, near death. You protected your son before he was even born. That's strength I've never seen before." Her tears spilled again, but this time they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of release, of healing. For so long, she had carried the weight of Ryan's cruelty, believing she was powerless. But she had survived. She had won. The weeks that followed were a blur of court hearings and legal battles, but the outcome was inevitable. With Sophia's testimony, the hospital's records, and the mountain of evidence against him, Ryan Carter's empire collapsed. He was stripped of custody rights, charged with fraud, and sentenced to prison. The man who had once walked through the city as if he owned it was now reduced to nothing. For Emily, justice wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. One quiet afternoon, she sat on the balcony of Ethan's home, her son cradled in her arms. The baby's tiny fingers curled around hers, his steady breathing filling her with peace she had thought she'd never know again. Ethan stepped outside, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You look different," he said gently, sitting beside her. Emily smiled faintly. "I feel different. For the first time, I'm not afraid." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't have to be. Not anymore. I'll be here. For you, for him. For as long as you'll let me." Her heart swelled. She looked at Ethan, then at her son, and for the first time she saw a future that wasn't shadowed by fear or pain, a future filled with hope. She leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder, whispering, "We survived. We're free." The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry, as though echoing her words. Emily closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the moment wash over her. The storm was finally over. And in that silence, Emily knew her story was no longer one of betrayal and despair. It was one of survival, justice, and the unbreakable strength of a mother's love. So that's how the story comes to an end. My dear friends, you're still here with me, right? If you've stayed until now, it means something in this journey has touched your heart in a way only you can feel. And maybe, just maybe, that's because Emily's fight is not only her story. It's the story of every woman who has ever felt abandoned, broken, or unseen. The Stoics used to say, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can always choose how you respond. And isn't that what Emily showed us? That even in betrayal, even when left to die, the strength of a mother's love and the courage to rise again can outshine the darkest night. So tonight, I want you to carry this truth with you. You are stronger than you think, and no cruelty in the world can erase your worth. If Emily's journey gave you even a spark of hope, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, talk about it, let it inspire someone else who needs it. And if you want more stories that heal, that empower, that remind us we are never alone, please like this video, subscribe, and stay with us. We'll walk this path together. The night was heavy with rain, pounding against the windshield in angry bursts. Emily Carter sat in the passenger seat, one hand cradling her swollen belly, the other gripping the door handle. At 8 months pregnant, every movement was a struggle, every breath a reminder of the fragile life inside her. She thought her husband Ryan was taking her to the hospital after her sudden cramps, but the coldness in his eyes told her otherwise. Ryan's jaw was tight, his fingers gripping the steering wheel as if he wanted to crush it. "Stop whining, Emily," he snapped, his voice cutting sharper than the storm outside. "You've done nothing but drag me down. This baby, our baby, it ruined everything." Her heart sank. The man who once whispered promises of forever now spoke as if she were a burden he couldn't wait to discard. Emily turned to him, tears mixing with the sweat on her pale face. "Ryan, please. I'm scared. I need you." He laughed bitterly, a sound colder than the rain. "You think I'm sticking around for this? I've got a real future ahead of me, with someone who actually matters." Her mind spun. She knew who he meant. Sophia, the mistress, the woman who had stolen not only her husband's affection but also her place in his world. Emily tried to steady her breathing, but the car swerved violently as Ryan pulled off the main highway and onto a dark, deserted mountain road. "Ryan, what are you doing?" Her voice trembled. He didn't answer. Instead, he slammed the brakes, jerking the car to a halt. The headlights illuminated nothing but trees and shadows. He yanked her door open, rain slashing across her face. "Get out," he ordered. "Please. I can't. I'm 8 months pregnant. You can't do this." His hand clamped around her arm, shoving her out into the storm. She stumbled, clutching her belly as a sharp pain tore through her body. Ryan leaned down, his face twisted with contempt. "You were a mistake, Emily, and tonight, you're gone for good." The tires screeched, spraying mud across her dress as the car disappeared into the black night. Emily collapsed on the wet ground, sobbing, the storm drowning out her cries. Her vision blurred, her body shaking, and just as another contraction hit, everything went black. Before the storm, before betrayal, there was once a story that seemed like a dream. Emily Carter often wondered if maybe she had imagined it all. The laughter, the tenderness, the vows whispered in the dark. Because the man who had promised her forever, Ryan Carter, no longer resembled the man she had fallen in love with. 4 years earlier, Emily was a bright-eyed kindergarten teacher, working long hours in a small Chicago school. She didn't come from wealth, nor did she carry the polish of high society. But she had warmth. A smile that comforted crying children. A voice that could quiet storms in the classroom, and a heart that believed in goodness. Ryan entered her life like a whirlwind. He was handsome, ambitious, and carried himself with the confidence of a man destined for greater things. He walked into the bookstore cafe where Emily spent her evenings grading papers, and his charm was immediate. "You look like someone who believes in happy endings," he had teased, sliding into the seat across from her. She laughed nervously, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. "And you look like someone who doesn't." That was how it began. A game of words that spiraled into midnight walks, whispered phone calls, and candlelit dinners Emily never thought she deserved. Ryan made her feel chosen. He made her believe she wasn't just another face in the crowd, but the center of his universe. Within 6 months, he had proposed with a modest diamond ring, slipping it onto her trembling hand under the twinkle of Christmas lights. The wedding was small, intimate, filled with promises that seemed unbreakable. Emily wore her mother's lace veil, and Ryan kissed her with the conviction of a man swearing loyalty for a lifetime. She thought she was safe. She thought she was loved. But even then, cracks were forming. Emily remembered the way Ryan's eyes lingered on wealthier guests at the reception, how he envied their cars, their tailored suits. He laughed it off, calling himself a dreamer. But there was something sharp in his ambition that unsettled her. Still, she ignored it. Love, she believed, could soften ambition. The first year of marriage was sweet. They lived in a modest apartment, surviving on her teacher's salary and his unstable sales job. Emily cooked, packed lunches, and left little notes in his jacket pocket. She thought these small gestures mattered. Ryan said they did. But slowly his patience frayed. He complained about money, about her simple lifestyle, about how they were falling behind. He started dressing differently, more expensive shirts, polished shoes, things she knew he couldn't afford. When she asked, he brushed her off with a smile. "Don't worry, Emily. Big things are coming." And then came Sophia. Emily noticed first in whispers, a perfume on his collar, late-night meetings that stretched until dawn. He denied it, wrapping his arms around her waist, kissing her cheek as if nothing had changed. For a while she believed him. She wanted to believe him. When she told him she was pregnant, Ryan had played the part of the doting husband perfectly. He lifted her off the floor in excitement, kissed her belly, promised her the world. Emily cried with joy, convinced this child would mend whatever cracks had formed between them. But the truth revealed itself in small, cutting moments. Ryan rolling his eyes when she complained of morning sickness, scolding her for buying prenatal vitamins, spending weekends networking while she lay alone on the couch. Still, Emily held on. She told herself love was sacrifice. She told herself he would come back to her, that the man who once made her believe in happy endings still lived inside him. She was wrong, because by the time her belly grew heavy with life, Ryan had already chosen another woman, and Emily was no longer his future, but his burden. At first, the changes were subtle, almost unnoticeable, like hairline cracks in glass. Emily told herself it was just stress, that Ryan was working hard to provide for their future. But deep down, she felt the shift, the warmth in his touch fading, the distance in his eyes growing wider each day. Ryan no longer came home on time. The dinners Emily carefully prepared turned cold on the table. His excuses multiplied. Client meetings, late-night strategy sessions, business opportunities that kept him out until dawn. Emily sat alone in their tiny apartment, her hands folded over her belly, convincing herself that marriage wasn't always perfect, that sacrifices were normal. But Ryan's sacrifices never included him. They were always hers. He began criticizing everything. Her clothes, her simple makeup, even the way she walked. "You're letting yourself go, Emily," he sneered one night, tossing his jacket on the couch. She was 6 months pregnant, exhausted from teaching and keeping their home together. But his words cut deep. She wanted to remind him that she carried his child, that her swollen feet and aching back were proof of her devotion. Instead, she bit her tongue, praying for the day his love would return. It only got worse. Bills piled up, yet Ryan somehow found money for expensive suits, steak dinners, and bottles of fine whiskey. Emily asked gently where the money was coming from. He glared at her, eyes sharp as blades. "Don't question me. You think your little teacher's salary keeps us afloat? I'm building a future you can't even imagine." But Emily didn't want luxury. She wanted stability. She wanted the man who used to hold her in the middle of the night, whispering that she was enough. That man was gone. One evening, she found a lipstick-stained napkin in his pocket. The shade was crimson red, a color Emily never wore. Her hands shook as she tucked it back, her heart pounding with dread. When she asked, Ryan laughed cruelly. "Paranoid, aren't you? Always imagining things. Maybe the hormones are making you crazy." The gaslighting worked. For weeks, Emily blamed herself. Maybe she was too emotional, too needy. Maybe Ryan truly was under pressure, and she was only adding to his burden. She promised herself she'd be stronger, quieter, easier to love. But the truth revealed itself in public humiliation. At a dinner with colleagues, Ryan introduced her not as his wife, but as Emily, the school teacher, his tone dripping with disdain. The others chuckled politely, while Emily forced a smile, hiding the sting behind her glass of water. Later, when she asked why, Ryan's answer was cold. "Do you expect me to brag about a woman who clips coupons while I'm trying to make million-dollar deals?" That night, Emily cried silently into her pillow, one hand on her belly, whispering to her unborn child, You're the only thing keeping me going." Her health declined under the strain. The doctor warned her to rest, to avoid stress, but stress was all she lived in. Every day was another battle to keep Ryan's temper from exploding. Every night was another reminder that love had turned to ash. Still, she clung to hope. She told herself maybe the baby would change things, that once Ryan held their child, his heart would soften. But deep down, she feared the opposite, that the baby would only push him further away. And she was right. Because the moment Ryan realized Emily's pregnancy made her weaker, he didn't protect her, he exploited it. Her name was Sophia Lane. 26, beautiful, sharp as glass, and dangerously ambitious. Emily first heard the name whispered in fragments, a passing mention in Ryan's phone calls, a text message quickly deleted, a faint trace of perfume clinging to his shirts. At first, she told herself it was nothing. Ryan worked in sales and networking, and women were often part of the business world. But something about the way his eyes flickered whenever she asked made her stomach twist with dread. The truth revealed itself one afternoon when Emily visited Ryan's office. She wanted to surprise him with lunch, a small gesture, a homemade meal to remind him she cared. Balancing the bag in one hand, she pushed open the glass door, her heart fluttering with nervous excitement. And there she was. Sophia sat behind Ryan's desk, legs crossed, her manicured fingers resting on his tie as she leaned close to whisper something in his ear. He laughed. A laugh Emily hadn't heard in months, rich and carefree. The sound sliced through her like a knife. Emily froze in the doorway, the lunch bag trembling in her grip. Ryan's head snapped up, his smile fading instantly. For a heartbeat, silence filled the room. Sophia, unfazed, tilted her head and smirked. "Well, isn't this awkward?" she said smoothly, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Ryan stood abruptly, anger flashing in his eyes. "Emily, what are you doing here? You can't just barge into my office like this." Her throat tightened. I just wanted to bring you lunch." She lifted the bag weakly as if it were proof of her love. Sophia chuckled softly, the sound like poison. "How sweet. Too bad he already ate." Her gaze traveled to Emily's swollen belly, lingering with cruel amusement. "Wow, you're really big." Ryan shot Sophia a warning look, but it was too late. Emily's tears burned, threatening to spill. She turned and fled the office, the lunch bag slipping from her fingers, crashing to the floor behind her. That night, Ryan didn't come home. When he finally stumbled through the door past midnight, Emily smelled the alcohol and perfume on him. "Where were you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't even flinch. "With Sophia. She understands me in ways you never could." The words shattered her. She sank onto the couch, cradling her belly, while Ryan poured himself a drink, as casual as if he were discussing the weather. "She's smart, connected, and she makes me feel alive," he continued coldly. You're just comfortable, safe, but I don't need safe anymore." Emily's chest ached, her breaths coming shallow. "Ryan, please, we're married, we're about to have a child." His laugh was cruel. "A child I never wanted. Do you understand that? You trapped me, Emily, and now Sophia is offering me a way out." Her vision blurred with tears. The man who had once sworn to protect her now spoke of her like a burden, a mistake. For the first time, Emily realized the depth of his betrayal. It wasn't just an affair, it was a replacement. But Sophia wasn't content to stay hidden in the shadows. The very next day, she appeared at the same restaurant where Emily and Ryan once celebrated anniversaries, sliding into Ryan's booth, her hand boldly resting on his. And this time the entire world seemed to notice. Because in that moment, Ryan made no effort to hide her. He was ready to show Sophia off, as if Emily no longer existed.